Hello. So today we're going to look at the common website errors that hold businesses back. And there's 12 of them, but I'll go through each one with you separately. Let me just click. There we go. So firstly, who am I? I'm Susie Brown. I'm a web developer and I own the Smart Bear. And we're actually 12 years old in 2 days' time. So yay, little birthday celebration on Thursday, except I've got loads of meetings booked in. So I do website design, website development and maintenance, search engine optimization. And then I'm a small business mentor and a trainer as well. So quite a lot that fit in there. Feel free to ask questions along the way if you want to, but there will be a section at the end. So if you don't fit it in or you don't want to disturb me going through, that's fine. You can ask at the end or you can ask there and then if you want to in the chat. So I'm not going to tell you about how to design a website today because design is really very subjective. What I like will be completely different to what somebody else likes. What I can say is that always design for your customers. Don't design for yourself. You aren't your customer. You aren't buying from yourself. Design for the people who are actually going to be buying from you. So if that's a certain age group or a certain demographic, then design for them. Design trends are constantly changing with new technology. If you're as old as me, you'll remember when websites used to be in the middle of the screen because we all had square monitors, and that obviously changed to a more responsive design, which is widescreen. So trends always change. What I would say is there's some best practices, which we're going to go through today, that are tried and tested when it comes to design. So you can design it in terms of style, how you want, how you feel best for your clients, but we've got some best practice guidelines, well, I'll cover a little bit today, that will make sure that it will always look good. So you don't have to keep redesigning it every year. Just going to get rid of this little box at the top there. It was annoying me. There we go. So mistake number one is centered text. So you've got to try and use centered text sparingly, and people use it because it looks good. It looks better to be centered, but people can't read it. So that's the main problem. If it's a large block of text, it's really difficult to read if it's not left aligned. So you might visually think it looks better, but if nobody's going to be able to read it, then that's going to be an issue. So I've got an example of that. This text is left aligned, so it's a lot easier to read than this one on the right. I don't know why our brains can't cope with it, but they can't if it's a huge block of text. Whereas our brains much prefer when it's left aligned. Justified is also another option where it's all across the screen, but just try and avoid the center text. If it's the odd sentence here and there, that's absolutely fine. You can get away with that. And headlines, obviously, you can get away with that too. It's just the big blocks. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two is quite a big one, is no clear calls to actions. You need to tell the customer what you want them to do. Hopefully when you built the website, you'd have a goal in mind for the website. What did you want your customers to do when they get there? Do you want them to buy something, to get in touch with you, to send you a message, to book in for a service or an appointment? What is it that you want them to do? And you need to tell them that. I see it a lot on social media as well as websites where you get to the end of the post or the website page and there's just nothing there. So where do they go next? 9 times out of 10, they'll just leave or they'll linger, getting lost on the website without actually having a defined plan. So you need to tell the customer what you want them to do at the end. And it might not be that page it's appropriate to sell on. For example, it might be your about page. You don't feel you can go straight into a sales pitch at the bottom, but you can maybe lead them on a journey to somewhere else that does lead to that. So make sure you have a clear call to action on every website page, post, whatever you're doing, make sure you've got one at the end. And I've got some examples of clear call to actions. He's really old now. These are from last year's talk. So these ones have a really big coloured button here at the bottom of it saying, grab your ticket today. So you don't want boring call to actions like learn more, unless it's a very, you're taking them on that journey through to the sales, but the sales one should be a little bit more dynamic. So grab your ticket today to save big. They've got an extra step and to say, the emotional aspect of the call to action. You can save money if you do it now. Whereas the one on the right is quite simple and saying book tickets. They're offering the same product, tickets to an event, but there's two very different call to actions there. So you've got to decide which is right for your clients. I'm a big believer in ethical copywriting. So I don't necessarily think you need to put the FOMO aspect into calls to action, where it says grab your ticket today to save big. You've got FOMO and emotions in there, but I don't necessarily think book tickets is right either. So it'd probably be somewhere in between for me. But you can make that choice yourself as to what you want to put into your call to action. Mistake number 3 is poor colour contrast, or too many colours, which I've seen quite a lot as well. People with disabilities, visual disabilities or neurological disabilities, struggle with colour contrast, and you could be potentially cutting off half your audience just by having the wrong choice of colours or too many colours. So it's important to make sure they work for everybody. Different technologies as well, like different devices, will show colours differently. So you might need to test on a variety of machines just to make sure they're working for you. So some examples here. So the one on the left has far too many colours. However, I do think that they've done it on purpose because they're an art school and they've gone for a very unique look. This is probably an old website and it's probably been redone because at the time, the trend for website design was year 2K. So it was all very 1990s, where it was all blocky like this. This is how we used to build websites back in the day. So I think they've done it on purpose, but for someone who has sight difficulties and also neurodiversity, they would struggle with this page. It's too much, the brain would overload. And for people with sight issue, they may not even be able to see it at all. So the graphic on the right of the screen shows what people can see with normal vision and those with some sight disabilities. And you'll see it does change quite a lot. So although we can see nice contrast if you've got normal vision, I say normal vision, but the general vision, I've got terrible vision, I wear contact lenses and have to wear glasses. But if you've got a sight condition, you may not be able to see certain contrasts at all. So it's very important to check that out. Luckily, there's some tools to help you. Here's some free online tools. The first one, if you haven't generated your colour palette yet, you're on that very start of your journey where you've not even come up with your branding, this accessible colour palette generator is amazing. It will help you work out what colours are right that are accessible to all your audiences. The colour from adobe.com, Colour Contrast Analyzer, if you do already have your colours in mind and set, it will check whether you can use them together. So you might have 2 or 3 or even more colours that you use in your branding, and it'll tell you how you need to use them or if you need to add a different colour in to make it easier for people to read. And then the last link there is just a little bit of fun, really. It does generate the palettes for you, but they're not necessarily accessible. So you might then need to run it through one of the other tools. But it's fun if you really have no ideas about colour. It will give you loads of different ideas on what colour palette to use for your branding. Mistake number 4 is not enough space on the page. And we kind of saw that on that Yale website where everything was kind of bunched together. Using white space is a design feature. You don't want it to look like there's a gap, as if something's not loaded or is missing, but you can use it to just pad out the content, and it gives it room to breathe. It makes it easier to digest when there's space involved. It just looks generally better. So again, I've got some examples. This one on the left actually has the same content as the one on the right. It's just laid out differently. It's spaced differently. And it actually, I keep always meaning to amend it because this space at this side really annoys me. This section should really go on for a little bit longer to match the width here to the left of title. But you want to just not mess around, that's the wrong word. Tweak your content to make it look better with the space. This would be your call to action button, and you want it definitely to have space around it. You want it to be focused and not lost in the copy, which it is on the left here. So use white space as your friend. Always use space around things, especially your logo. Every branding guideline I've seen from big businesses and small businesses always specifies space around your logo of about 10 pixels, if that helps you, but just a little bit of space around your logo so it's not butting up against any other content. And the same with other content. You want it to breathe and be readable. The next one is mistake number 5, no GDPR pop-up or SSL certificate. These are now part of UK legislation. So they are part of regulations that you need to follow, but they also provide that trust to the customer. So the person who's coming to you knows exactly that you're trustworthy, that you know the laws and regulations, and that you are looking after their private data. So GDPR pop-ups, that's the cookie pop-up. We've all probably seen them. They're really annoying. I hate them, but they are part of law. You just press accept and then you move on. You need to tell people what you do with their information. If you take their information, if you put cookies onto their computer. So cookies is a little bit of code that stores what's called a session. So it records the fact that they've been to your website and what they do on the website. It's really essential for shops because you may have done it yourself in the past where you've added something to your basket, gone away for 3 days to think about it, come back and that item is still there. And that's because of a cookie. So they are really useful for businesses, although websites are slowly getting rid of them and going down a different route. However, there are some cookies that you don't necessarily want. They're what's called tracking cookies. And you may have experienced these yourself as well, where you go and look at a website, think, I might come and buy something, go back and then end up on social media and the ad is there straight away. And that's a tracking cookie. It knows that you've been on that website and now it's throwing an ad at you to try and get you back to buy that thing. So that's one of the downsides of using cookies. They're really vital for small businesses, however, because we have to try and compete with the big guys who've got massive marketing budgets. So those little free things that we can do to help track people can actually be really beneficial for small businesses. But you need to tell people about cookies and the fact that you're using them. The other thing you need to do is the SSL certificate, which is the little green padlock that shows that your website is secure encrypted. Luckily, most website builders and providers have that inbuilt these days. You just have to remember to activate it. And they also are SSLs are now part of the ranking factor as well with Google. So there's so many benefits to having that little SSL on there, and it's free usually. Although if you're dealing with certain types of information, you might want to pay for an upgrade. So if you deal with medical, children's data, very personal data, you might want to upgrade those free SSLs to a higher level of encryption. So some examples of the pop-up banner. I always use the ICO, which is the Information Commissioner's Office, who kind of look after all this data protection, because they're the people that would be coming after you if it's not right. I think look at how they're doing it as an example. So they've said they're using cookies. You can either accept or reject. And these buttons have to be the same color and the same size. You can't do different sizes to make it stand out more. What cookies they're using, you can turn on and off certain cookies. So for this one, they've got analytic cookies, which are things like Google Analytics. So you can turn that off if you want to, but you can also do it in your browser settings as well. And it mentions that. And this little C that's right in the bottom hand corner, that will always be on the website. So you can change your mind at any time. So that's an example of a cookie policy that is valid and compliant. There's loads of plugins if you're on WordPress. It's absolutely tons. Most of the platforms like Wix and Squarespace have this built in as well. You just need to activate it. However, it may not always be completely compliant. So you need to check that you're being compliant with those platforms and with the plugins as well. So that is that one. Mistake number 6 is probably the most controversial one that I've got on here because everybody's in very two minds about it. But mistake number 6 is using Linktree. Loads of people use Linktree. So if you don't know what Linktree is, it's a website that lets you put all your prominent links on, and you then put one link in your Instagram bio, for example, or something like that. And it just has a page of all your links, like it might be a booking link, might be a blog link, your website, other social media. It's a great tool and it's dead easy to use. However, you're sending all your traffic to another website, somebody else's website. So their ranking's going through the roof, whereas yours is not. Your traffic isn't building at all. So it's much better to have those links on your website instead to drive traffic to your website rather than through Linktree. Now, they may go off again, especially if the link that they're landing on your booking link might be an external website or your social media. They may go off again. But if you do what's called open a link in a new tab, bit of code, most platforms have that option as a tick box, then they'll stay on your website and they might come back to it later on once they've been wherever they need to go. So this is an example of how I've done it, that my old link tree was like that. And it was, you could customize it to a certain degree, but not massively. You could change the colors a little bit, and that was about it. Add your logo and things like that. Whereas on my own website, I can control what data is on there, and I can also put tracking links on there, so I can find out exactly who is using my link tree page, my link page, and where they're coming from and where they're going to. So it's really useful to have it on your own website. Just as a page, I've got mine called /links. That would work. So you just have a list of links. You don't need to make it fancy like I have, but I just wanted to color coordinate everything. So that's an example of using your own website for links rather than Linktree. Mistake number 7, no social proof. So independent testimonials are the best thing you can have on your website. Sometimes people put in a picture and then some text and then a little bit about the person who's making the testimonial, and they're just writing those directly on the website, and that is fine. However, people will trust it more if it's on a platform like Facebook or on Google or Trust Index, because it's seen as independent, so that it's not, essentially, they know it's not made up, although you can still fake them on those platforms. It's a lot harder because people have to have profiles. Whereas, and I know from building websites for 12 years, longer than that, in fact, that website owners do make testimonials up. I have, in fact, inputted some of those testimonials for clients in the past. Until they've got real ones, if you're a startup, it's very difficult to have testimonials, which is why people don't trust them on your website as much as those other platforms. So what can you do about that? So if you are doing it on different platforms, you can do what I've done here, which is embed. So this is Google. These are all my Google reviews. I've embedded them into my website, so they're actually being pulled through from Google. Then you can see the genuine because you can see who it is that's leaving that review. Some have photos, some have a brand, so you can see that it's a genuine review, and you can see the answers as well. If you click through, you can see if I've said anything back to people. Whereas these are two of my colleagues. In fact, both their websites have changed since, but they're still doing this to a certain degree. So the one on the left, Janine has put hers on her website. Like I was saying, she doesn't have, she hasn't pulled them through. She's just written them on there herself. The way she's done it now is slightly better. It's more as a quote and it looks a bit nicer as well. Lyft has changed the website completely since then, but she was using them in her Instagram instead. So she was putting client testimonials on her Instagram, and then her Instagram feed is embedded on the website. So they're not necessarily independent in the fact that you don't know they're genuine, but they're out there in the public domain. And they're in 2 places. They're in Instagram and they're on a website. So that's one way of doing it. You can also embed Facebook reviews onto your website with the little widget. So that's another way of doing it if you've got Facebook reviews. Google reviews are the best ones to get. Google will rank you higher if you have good reviews, and the more you have, the better. It's really hard to get reviews from clients, especially on Google, because they have to have a Google login to be able to do it. So it is really difficult to get reviews. Unless you're business to consumer, it's slightly easier. Facebook is probably the easier path for reviews. And like I say, you can use them, but Google reviews are the best. If you've only got the energy and the budget to go after a certain type of review, you can only concentrate on one platform. Google is the one to do it on. Get as many as you can on Google. One of my clients as well uses paper ones. He just takes pictures of the paper ones because he deals with quite a lot of the elderly community who don't necessarily have access to a computer but are happy to write him a note. So he takes manual pictures of those handwritten notes instead. Mistake number 8 is no story or personality. I see this time and time again with my mentees. They say exactly what they do, but they don't say why. What are the benefits to how they do things? Why do they do it? And most importantly, they don't say where they are. It's a lot easier to win local SEO, so it's local search engine optimization, and rank locally than it is to rank globally. So it's much better to say where you are in the country, even if you were targeting national people, because Like I said, it's much easier to win your local area. So you need to say who you are, where you are, and put a bit of story behind it, a bit of your personality. People do still buy from people, especially these days. So some examples of that. Always include a photo of you or an avatar if you're really camera shy. There's loads of AI generated images these days as well. If you are the business, so you're a coach or you're a photographer or a plumber or something like that, so you are the major part of your business. People will see you when they contact you, when they have any interaction with you, then you need a photo of yourself on there. I know it's awful, and I didn't have one on there probably for about half my business, so probably about 6 years I didn't have a picture of myself on my website. And the difference it makes having you on the website is astonishing, that you won't believe. I've also started being more present on social media. I never used to do pictures of myself or videos. I wasn't into that at all. I started doing them, and then I went to a big event in London not so long ago, and people actually recognized me. And two people came up to me and said, "Oh, I love your lives." And I was so taken aback that A, they knew me and recognized me, but B, that they'd been watching my lives, these people who I didn't know. So being the brand, the face is really important for brand recognition if you are the brand. So it's not a team of people or something like that. You are the point of contact when people get in touch with you. And if you're going into other people's houses, I'd say definitely have an image of yourself on there as well. Always include your full name. You'll be surprised how many people forget to put their full name on. People need to know who you are. But also, if you go out networking or someone's referred you, they might go, "Oh, you need to speak to this person." And they'll put your name into the search engine, and your website won't come up because your name isn't mentioned on that website. So you need to put your full name on there, unless there's any kind of security aspects to that. If you don't want your full name on there, you might need to do it a different way. Put your job description or your job role on there, so what it is you do, and a general overview of who you are and what you're doing. Again, location, which I've mentioned already. And you also need to put your story on. So why do you do what you do? When did you start it? Who do you help? Where do you do it? So is it online, in person, via a website? Don't forget to mention your skills, your accreditation, your life experience, your values, and your goals as well, because those will all attract the client that you want to attract. And if you have got relevant images or videos, put them on as well. I had an experience of this, a mentee who from a while ago now, actually, and she was a chocolate maker, so she made chocolates, and she was just starting out as the business of making chocolates. But when I was talking to her, what came out of the call was that she actually had worked for some really big chocolate companies in the past for like over 15 years. So she had 15 years experience of making chocolate that has been sold internationally. And at no point on her website did she mention this experience. So I was like, you need to mention that. That is saying that you've got all this experience. You know what chocolate's about. You know how chocolate, how chocolate sells, what chocolate sells best. You're not just someone who started up in the kitchen having a little play with chocolate. You've got all this experience behind you, and you need to mention it to your customers. Coming back to location as well, another person, she was making things in Yorkshire, and Yorkshire made items is a really common sales tactic. There's people love things from Yorkshire, even if you're not from Yorkshire. The same for Ireland as well. So it might be that your location has a something like that that's a speciality in your area. So it might be worth saying that you are Yorkshire made or something like that. A bit like Britain, made in Britain is quite big as well. So mistake number 9, not breaking up sections of text. So there's 2 reasons for doing this. 1, because it makes it easier to read. 2, it's more visually interesting. And 3, it's really good for SEO to do this as well. So search engine optimization, it'll help your ranking to do this. So you want to use subheadings and images where you can. So the one on the left and the one on the right is the same copy. So it's the same blog, but it's so much easier to read on the right. People scan read. People want to get to the point quickly. They want to check that it actually says what it needs to say before they start reading the whole thing. So people will scan read through this. So the subheading needs to really describe the next paragraph down or the next section down. Ideally, you'd use keywords in there. So for this one, I've got charities, improve their website reach. That whole line is probably actually what's called a keyword for me. Tell your story isn't necessarily got keywords in it, but optimized for search engines would have. So you want to put those keywords in for SEO, but also to help the customer, whoever's reading it, find what they want out of that blog. And it just breaks it up as well. It looks nicer. If you do put images on, make sure they're really good quality and make sure they're relevant to the blog that you're actually posting on there. I tend to not use images as much because most of my images are all these leafy ones for my social media and my websites, and they don't really go with what I'm saying. So I don't tend to put them in because there's no additional benefit to having them there. Mistake number 10 is not using a blog to drive traffic. This is a really good one for SEO. It's one of the easiest steps as a small business owner that you can do to help drive traffic and increase your SEO, your ranking position. You need to show that you're an expert in your field. When you're starting out writing blogs, and I did it, I hold my hands up, I used to go, it was more like social media. It's like news. Oh, I've done this today and this is what happened. And it's like 3 sentences long. That's no good. It needs to be at least 800 words. And it needs to be in a subject that your users find valuable. So something that you're an expert in or that you've got an opinion on. So for example, that last one, if I go back, what charities can do to improve their website reach is one of my blogs because I'm trying to appeal to charities and I want people, those charities, to be able to improve their own website reach. And that's showing that I'm an expert, but it's something they find useful. I've also got a lot of help guides on there. And the people who visit those help guides aren't going to be my customers necessarily. In fact, quite a few developers read them. However, it has brought me traffic. I still get traffic to this day from one that I wrote about 6 years ago. Still getting daily hits on that website, on that blog. But I have had some paid work through it as well back during the pandemic. So although you feel like you're giving away something that you shouldn't and you should charge for, sometimes it's beneficial to give that little bit of data away to get the traffic through or to even lead on to paid work. So 71% of B2B buyers consume blog content during their buyer journey. That's a massive number of people who are reading blogs prior to making a purchase. So it's definitely worth doing. And blogging influences 6% of e-commerce sales and 12% of businesses that blog regularly. So it's definitely worth blogging. It brings traffic in. It gives somebody something to read, but also it helps you widen your keywords. For me, like for example, for me, I'm a website designer. If I just used website design and development as my keywords, how many people in the country and internationally are using those same keywords? A huge amount. Whereas somebody saying something about how charities can improve their journey, it's probably going to be more niche. There's going to be less competition for it, which is where blogging comes in, because you can use those niche words that are more targeted at your customers to get that traffic through, whereas you wouldn't necessarily be able to compete with the other kind of words. For example, again, if you're selling jewelry, it could be silver jewelry. How many people are using that term? Tons of people. But if you can do it in a different way, like how to stop your silver jewelry from tarnishing in the sea, that's getting customers through a back door almost. They're not searching for jewelry, but they've seen that you're writing this helpful blog and they're into silver jewelry because they've bought it before and then they want to know how it doesn't tarnish. Then they might see your products and then they might go on to buy. So it's just thinking outside of the box when it comes to blogging. Definitely start it though if you've not done already. Mistake number 11, just one more to go after this one. No or irrelevant visuals. I've mentioned being irrelevant before. But not having any visuals on there is not a good either. They grab attention and engage users. It doesn't have to be an image. It could be a graphic. It could be I've forgotten what they're called. It could be a video. It could be even sound. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a pretty photograph. So try and avoid badly cropped images where people are half missing or half the image is missing and it doesn't make sense, or text is half cropped. Avoid low resolution images, so you don't want it to be pixelated on a massive screen like this that I'm using. Irrelevant images, as I've mentioned before, it has to kind of tie it. It's got to add value because you're adding a lot of weight to the page by adding that photo. Does it add value to the customer? Are they downloading that picture for no reason? It doesn't really do anything. It's just pretty, nice to look at. They are useful to a certain degree, but you don't want them all over the page. Avoid other people's images. Don't go stealing people's images. There's somebody else's copyright. Get your own. You can take your own with your own mobile phone. You can buy stock photography, you can download free stock photography these days. There's so many other options. AI, you can generate some of your own as well. Try and avoid massive images and massive videos. You definitely don't want more than one of those on any page because it will just slow the web page down. And avoid tiny images. So they're great on mobiles because you can really see them, but on a massive screen, they just look a little bit lost. So try and avoid those. It comes back to the low resolution images again. I've seen many people stealing images off Google and they're tiny when they've downloaded them and they're tiny on their website and they will never blow up big, which is great until they become a feature of your brand. And then you can never blow it up to a big banner because it's too pixelated and it's not your copyright either. So consider screenshots. They're great if it's something that you're trying to describe. I use screenshots quite a lot as a process for my guides. Infographics are really good as well. You can make those on places like Canva. They're free. They've got templates set up for it. Icons are fab as well. They're really good for neurodiverse people to point sections out. Educational images, so there's something that people are learning from that image. High quality images, as I've said, and copyright free images. I've got a blog on my website actually that lists a load of different sources for copyright free images and especially some diverse imagery as well, which is harder to find. So seek that out if that's something that you need. Mistake 12, sorry, number 12 is having no newsletter sign up or socials. So somebody's landed on your website and they like what they see, but they're probably going to come back because they might have another person that they need to discuss it with, or they're just thinking about it still. You want them to keep you in mind. If they leave your website without making that connection in another way, they may just forget about you. It happens. I do it all the time. I pin my website, so I've got tons and tons of pinned websites to the top of my browser instead. But the better way is newsletter sign up or a social media link where they can come and follow you. Apparently they've got to see you like 6 times prior to making a decision on a sale. So if you don't capture them in that moment, they may not come, you may not see them again. So if you want to do newsletter signups, get yourself a newsletter sign up box, or if you just want to do socials, at least have the main socials on your website linked somewhere. It's usually the header or the footer where you put them, but you could have them anywhere else if you want to. It's up to you. Some people also have them on the contact page. The newsletter sign up can literally be anywhere. It could be in the middle of the screen. It could be in the footer. It could be a pop-up. Again, I don't like them, but some people do. What's called a toast, which kind of rises from the bottom, or it could be at the top. It could be even in your, as soon as you land on the page, you've got a newsletter sign up there. It depends what it is you're offering and who your customers are. So some examples for you. The one on the left, she's got 2 actually. So she's got this, what's called, I forgot what they call it. She's got the one there at the top where she's giving something away. As part of it, she's giving you free tips in exchange for your email address and your name. And then she's got one at the bottom as well, which you can sign up to them and it'll go onto probably a different list. So she's got 2 on her website. The one on the right is the 2 different places of where to put your social media. This one at the bottom is an example of having it in a box on the website. So rather than a footer, it's just on the screen, or you can have it in your footer like these people have here. And this is another example. So you can have your social media down there as well. So this link at the bottom here, if you want to take a screenshot, I'll leave it up for a minute. This gives you some ideas for templates for these socials or newsletter signups. It just gives you an idea of how to word it and things like that. So take a screenshot of that if you want to follow up with that. I presume it's still there. Like I say, this webinar's from last year, so I need to go through and check everything. Is there any questions? That's all the mistakes I've got, but I know there was some questions earlier on. Alice is nodding, so we'll go.
Yes, there were, and thank you so much for that, Susie. I'm hoping that everybody has come away with a nice, long but manageable list to go away and review your websites and hopefully tick off all those 12 that Susie's mentioned. You can see lots of people taking notes, which was really, really lovely. We do have some questions, so we will start going through them. So first of all, Peter, I saw your question about having issues with SEO and organic search. Susie, I'm going to come to you in a second in case you want to add anything there, but I did, Peter, just pop a link in the chat. We did a fantastic hour-long session on SEO and particularly localized SEO. So Peter's giving us a thumbs up. So I've referred you to that, but do you want to say anything light about SEO there, Susie?
Yeah, so I'm on a mission at the minute to get more people doing their own SEO or just at least learning the language of SEO. So you don't, if you do ever have to employ someone, you know exactly what you're buying from them, because there's so many cowboys out there. But SEO is something you can do yourself. It does need a little bit of investigation in how to do things, certain things. But the key things for me that for you doing your own SEO is blog writing, as I've mentioned. That's one of the easiest things to do. And one of my mentees came up with a genius brainwave. He said, I just spend a day writing 12 and then publish them out for the whole year. So I've got 12 blogs that are just out for the whole year and I don't have to write content again for the next year. I think that's genius. And I don't know why I didn't think of it before. You can do it more often. Then every month you could do it weekly, you could do it bi-weekly, every 6 months. But whatever you decide to do, stick to it. Consistency is the key with with SEO, because the little robots will come back looking for the blog in a month. And if it's not there a couple of times, they may not come back again. So then you have to kind of prompt them into going to have another look and indexing that new blog. The other thing you can do is backlinks. Backlinks are another easy thing you can do yourself. And that is a link from somebody else's website to you. Directories are the easy win here. So there's things like Yelp, Free Index, places like that. There's also some local ones. The Manchester Evening News here in Manchester has their own business directory, which is free to list on. And there's probably some industry specific ones as well, like wedding directories and things. Get yourself on as many of those as you can for free. You don't need to pay. You will be tried to be upsold through Yelp and Yelp. They'll give you a call to see if you want to buy the next level. You don't need to. The free one is fine, but they will ring you. Get yourself on as many of them as possible, but make sure your address details and your point of contact information is exactly the same over all of them. And I do suggest starting a spreadsheet to write down where you've listed yourself, because you will forget. So if you move offices or your phone number changes, you know where to change everything again. Google My Business. If you haven't already got one, get a Google My Business. It's free. They call it Google Profiles now, but everybody still calls it Google My Business. It's a free service from Google, so use it as much as you can. There's a little bit of conflict about addresses these days on Google, because they want you to do this silly video, but if you do have to do the video, don't worry, nobody else is going to see it. It's just for Google to verify who you are. But it's one of the best tools. On Google My Business, you can put your hours of opening. I use it for my holidays, so there's one point of contact for my clients to find out what my holidays are. You can put on reviews. You can, as we've mentioned before, you can put on offers, events, services. There's loads of things. Use it like a social media site. So if you're putting a blog post out somewhere else, put it on Google My Business as well. I always forget to do it. If you can remember, do it on there as well, because it's a Google product. They're obviously going to rank it higher than anything else because it's their product. So get yourself on there, and the reviews especially on there. So they're the two main things you can do yourself for for SEO for small businesses. The other thing is keywords. You need to really know who you're targeting and what you think they may be searching for. And it does take a little bit of investigation and research for that. However, AI can help. So you can ask AI to do that step for you. But choose words or phrases, because usually it's about 6 keywords long these days, that actually have traffic to it. I've just been doing it for a client and he was ranking really well for this word, and then it suddenly took a nosedive. But when I looked at the stats for that word, it was a word that had very low traffic compared to a different word. So we've actually changed the tactic. And although it's a word the client really loved and he wanted to use all over his website, it's not gaining in anything. So we've moved to a different keyword because it's got more monthly searches. So there's more people looking for that word. So not to go on too much, I could do a whole hour on SEO.
No, that was fantastic. And when we did the session on Friday, I was saying, like, don't panic, like SEO is a big, big topic, but I think you've just distilled it perfectly into some really nice, simple and actionable takeaways. So thank you, Susie. And link is in the chat for anybody that wants to check out last week's session. It's on the Digital Boost Resource Centre. It's a whole hour. The slide deck is there as well. So you could get some really, really good actionable insights from that. Okay, let's move on to Leo's question, which is how to set up the use of a cookie pop-up. Now, that's a hard one to do in a group session, but maybe we can just give some advice there, Susie, and then we'll direct to a one-to-one mentoring session.
Idea. So they pop up. You need to be compliant. That's the big thing. So you need to do some research on compliancy. And like I said, look at the ICO website because they're the controllers of all this and they will have guidance on there for you. Once you understand the compliancy, it's relatively easy to then set up. Most platforms, so if you've built your website somewhere like on Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, Shopify, anything where you've built a website will probably have the functionality already built in. You just need to activate it. So you just need to look for cookie pop-up or something like that. Ask them if you're not sure or type it into Google and it'll probably bob up with an instruction guide. The only difference one is WordPress, which you'll need to have an add-on for. But there's loads of great free ones. I think Cookies Yes is a pretty good one. And I think that one also will work on any website. So Cookies Yes will give you a little bit of code to put on your website instead, and it will work on every website. Some of them charge, and that depends on the size of the website. So if you're a bigger company with a bigger website, you might want to pay for a service because it'll probably have more functionality. Things like if you do have a tracking software on there, a tracking code on there, like the ICO website, it can be turned off directly from the pop-up. So that's one option that one of the better plugins will offer. Some of the other ones don't offer that. So like I said, just make sure you know what the compliance is because it's down to you to make sure you're compliant and the fine will come to you if you're not.
That's wonderful, thank you. Royce has said, and also just really quickly, we have lots of mentors on the platform who can support with that. Cookies is a huge topic. So if you do want support, you can request a session under something like legal guidance or something like that, website development. We have wonderful mentors like Susie who are equally as well versed in cookies. So do book those follow-up mentoring sessions. Royce has a question about the Google reviews, and they have said, just to confirm, you can embed Google reviews, but can you embed Facebook reviews on your website? And if so, how? And is there a cost?
Yes, you can, and it is free to a certain point. You can do certain things for free. It's what they call freemium. They'll give you a little bit and then you have to pay for the rest. So there's companies out there that will give you the code, as I've mentioned before, like a little widget that will give you the code and you can just put that onto your website and there'll be instruction guides on how to do that. So if it's Wix, you would ask how you would embed special code on Google and it will show you instructions. Or if you're on WordPress, there's plugins that will do it all for you. You just put in certain information like the name of your Facebook page and it will pull the rest through for you. Mine is done through WordPress and mine is on a plugin. And I just pull through Google. But I did used to pull through Facebook, but I just didn't like how it looked. So I changed it to just Google. But I can do both if I want to. So yes, you can.
No, that's an amazing answer. Thank you. Let us know how you get on with that, Royce. We would love to hear. Okay, Shraddha has said, oh no, sorry, I've missed Ayanda's question. Ayanda has said, just to clarify on mistake number 8, would you advise leading with your story when people first land on your page, or that it should just be present somewhere on the site?
That's a really good question. Very good question. It depends who your target audience is as to whether you do that. Most of the time you start off on a website with the benefits. So you usually offer 3 benefits of what is you offer rather than going straight into a story. However, if you are the business like a coach or something like that, it's better to be having it prominent on the page. So it would be either the first or the second section. So above the fold or just slightly the first bit after. So the fold is what you can see on the screen as you first open the website, and when you scroll, that's below the fold. So you'd have it as a first option below the fold, if not on the first one. But normally you have the benefits first.
Amazing, thank you. Now we'll get to Shraddha's question, which is it necessary to run paid Google ads to increase visibility and traffic, or can it be achieved organically? Now, I know we've covered it a bit, but what's your thoughts on that, Susie?
Really good question again, and great questions today. So, PPC is very expensive as you're starting out. You can do it for cheaper, but it doesn't produce as much good results if you're not paying the market average, which tends to be expensive. However, it's a shorter way to get traffic. So SEO can take anything from 6 weeks to 6 months to kick in of consistent work. However, I stress that it is really beneficial to do it because that will last a lot longer than PPC. As soon as you stop doing ads, the traffic will stop. So it's better to have SEO done. And also PPC is a lot cheaper when you've got your SEO done right. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I would personally, unless you've got a massive budget and you need to get brand awareness out there straight away, I'd avoid PPC until you're a bit further in your journey. Social ads might be better. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those kind of places might produce more return on investment in the short term than PPC, which can be very expensive.
Thank you so much. We are absolutely battering through these questions, which is amazing because there are lots more. So we've got Dorothy who's asked, how often should we be publishing blogs on our websites?
You can do it as often as you want, but like I said, regularly, because we need to make sure that Google is coming back to index it at appropriate times. So it could be that you do it weekly, and if you're like me, you'll do it weekly for like 2 months and then you'll forget. And then you won't do another one for 6 months. Google in the interim has been back every week looking for a blog, got bored, realized there isn't one, and then just said, right, that's it, I'm not going back now for another year because you've not got one there. So I know how to prompt it to get it back because I do this all the time for clients. So I would know how to prompt Google to bring those little indexing bots back. But for you guys, until you know that it's waiting for Google to look at it again. So your blog might be on there, but not indexed for another 6 months, which is pointless and a bit boring. So just try to keep the regularity. Pick how, like I said, my mentee said to do 12 and just schedule it for the year. So he knows that a new one is going out every month for a year. And if he does happen to do extra ones in that time, that's great. But chances are he's got his whole year covered and they're going to be indexed promptly.
That's amazing advice, thank you. And really nice to hear about the kind of consistency. I think that feels quite manageable if we can kind of time block those blogs and then just schedule them. That's really, really cool. Okay, so Antonia has asked, how do we manage having high quality images with the time it takes to load the website pages? If it takes too long, users will leave. Now, this comes up a lot, not just with images, but videos as well, Susie. So if you've got any advice there on not slowing pages down.
Yeah, so this comes back to the relevancy of images. Is that image adding anything to that page, or is it just it's just fanciful? It's just you want it to look pretty. A lot of websites these days are moving to text only websites because it's more resource light, shall we say. So they load faster, it's taking up less resources, so therefore it's more ethical. It also costs less to run it. However, visual aids definitely do help people as well. So A, make sure it's relevant. B, make sure it's not too big. You want good quality, but you don't need it massive. For a monitor that's huge for me, you want images to be about 2000 pixels wide on the longest length. So yeah, so you want it wide. The height and the height doesn't really matter so much, depends on where you're putting it that it matters. But definitely no less than 2000 for a big image that's going across the screen. If it's just an image that's maybe a half or a quarter of the screen, then you can get away with half or a quarter of that 2000 pixels. You want it to be 72 dpi. If you're used to print, like photography and graphic designers, it's usually 300 dpi for print. But modern technology actually replaces some of the pixels for us. So it just kind of makes it up. So we could get away with 72 dpi, which is, I can't remember the term, but it's something pixels per inch or something. So you can get away with a much less pixels because the monitor will make it up for us. The next step, the very last step, is compress your image. Some platforms have compression built in, like Squarespace does, Shopify does, I think. Some of them don't, but you can add on, like WordPress, you can add on a plugin that will compress, or you can do it externally first in a program like Kraken.ai. It's one of them. Kraken picture compression will help you compress it down to be even smaller. But like I say, try not to have too many massive images on there. Make sure they're relevant. Same for videos. You don't want a 30-minute video on your website, because that's just going to crash. And if you do put videos on, use something like YouTube to host it that will cope with the bandwidth for you, so you don't have to. If you get like 10 people watching the same video that's 30 minutes long, the website would just crash and burn, but YouTube will be able to handle it.
That is absolutely fantastic. And just carrying on with the theme of images on the website, Fatima has said, would AI generated images be suitable? And maybe we can talk, I don't know if you want to touch on maybe the do's and don'ts of using AI images on the website as well, just to cover that off, Susie.
Yeah, so I've not done much on AI images. I've done lots of AI content, so copy, but in terms of images, I don't think it's 100% there yet. There are programs that you have to pay for that do it a little bit better, but you can use them. It would just make sure that you've done your own common sense check. A, that there's no extra fingers. B, that it reflects what it is you're trying to sell. C, that it's ethical in the terms of, are you actually appealing to a wide range of people? Is it diverse, or is it just one certain look throughout your whole website? Because you're cutting out half your clients there and then. And also just make sure that it's not breaking any copyright laws. You can do a reverse image search on Google quite easily these days, where you can check that that image isn't being used elsewhere, or that it's somebody else's copyright, or there's some aspect of it that is copyrighted, because you don't want any cease and desist letters to come through. But yeah, you can totally use AI generated stuff if you want to.